If you grew up on the internet, you've likely stumbled across the darker corners of 4chan, edgy Discord servers, and people with frog avatars on Twitter quoting Nietzsche between slurs. You've definitely heard of the Traveler pipeline, and if you haven't, it's a weird cocktail of alt-right aesthetics, fascist cosplay, faux intellectualism, and extreme misogyny. But what once remained in isolated forums online has now trickled into mainstream social media apps like TikTok and Instagram. And then of course there's the darker side of it. The idolization of mass murderers like Elliot Rodger, Dylan Roof, Adam Lanza, and the Columbine kids. These are names that should strike disgust, but there are entire communities based around worshipping them and celebrating them that include fangirls who are as young as 13 or 14 years old. Unfortunately, we currently live in a world where any teenager can go online on pretty much social media platform and they can find these communities and entrench themselves in this weird little culture that they have, and in the worst case scenarios, write their own manifestos and go and do the same thing, which we've seen happen with Samantha Rupno and Solomon Henderson. This video is going to serve as a deep dive into the Never Mixed Girl, not just into her little viral moment, but her real-life associations with a youth terror network, her ideology, her family history, the things that she's been accused of, etc. In order to keep this video aligned with YouTube's content policies on this kind of matter, I'm going to be using a gentler phrasing than what ought to be used for these groups. The word that should be used is neo-Nazi, but I'm not going to get away with saying that a whole bunch of times in this video, so I'm going to be using far-right or alt-right as alternative terms, but they do mean the same thing. This girl stared deadpan into the camera and said something so egregiously racist and cartoonishly offensive that it almost felt like satire the first time I saw it. So let's rewind a bit into where this whole situation started. She posts her Never Mixed TikTok and it blows up. She's dehumanizing mixed race people and people of color, and obviously everyone's really fucking mad about it. Thousands of duets, parodies, stitches, whatever the fuck you want to call it, came flooding in, like clowning on this girl. But not a lot of people actually looked into what else she was doing on the internet. And that's where shit gets crazy. I've spent over a week researching this and trying to get all the information that I possibly could for this video, and when I was looking for the information and I was just kind of like interviewing people and looking at the archives, dude, ugh. Okay, I gotta lock in. Once a small group of users began investigating the other aspects of her online presence, what they found was a digital rabbit hole stretching back possibly over 4 years. People assumed that she was just your run-of-the-mill, average, edgy, racist comm girl trying to get attention from men, but what they didn't know is that she has 4 felonies and she is 18 years old. From Omegle trolling in blackface to mass shooter idolization, FBI investigations, Holocaust denial, selfies in which paraphernalia from a certain German political party were shown in the back, like that one tapestry that every teenage girl has on her wall. The TikTok wasn't just offensive, but a small look into her online legacy characterized by absolute degeneracy at its peak. So welcome to fucking Agartha, I guess. Sally Saxon, born in 2006, is from a relatively quiet small town in South Carolina. She's operated under several aliases online, but her most common and well-known one is Coolgirlvril. It's a direct nod to occult far-right ideology. Vril refers to some sort of weird, like, proto-Nazi esoteric mythos or some shit. I don't know, they really love to use that word. From a young age, Sally Saxon had a fascination with weaponry. A Twitter account she made in 2017 with the username Sniper Queen displays her love for GTA 5 and her love for the YouTube channel LT Lick Me, which is centered around trolling, FPS games, and military aesthetics. At around the time she made this account, she would have been around 11 years old, meaning her fascination with this kind of content started at a super young age. Sally Saxon was banned from Instagram after the FBI contacted her mother about her former username, Cassidy Roof, which is a direct reference to Dylan Roof, the white supremacist mass shooter who perpetrated the Charleston church shooting. She was openly infatuated with him and fantasized about committing similar acts of violence. She posted all manner of photos of herself surrounded by weapons, ammo, alt-right paraphernalia. But she wasn't just engaging in racist rhetoric on the internet, she was actually escalating to the threat of real actual violence. She went on Omegle in blackface and hurled slurs at innocent black people. She filmed TikToks with swastikas and deadly weapons visible in the background, and she idolized Dylan Roof so intensely that she even took his last name, cosplayed as him, and allegedly owned a body pillow of him, which she slept with. She also allegedly showed up in an iShow Speed livestream engaging in her usual racist activities, but I haven't actually been able to find the clip. If anyone else can find the clip, please let me know, because I want to see it.
I'm a real nigga just stepped, damn. You have no
shit,
nigga.
Yeah,
I'm gay, cuz.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Wasn't familiar with your game. Could you repeat that?
Eventually, when Sally's online activity caught up with her, she was arrested after making threats to commit a shooting and was placed under FBI watch.
There will be a series of missions followed by a final big-ass mission called Zero Kids! Even if we hadn't, should we blame them or not?
She was photographed wearing an ankle monitor and spent time in a detention center. She bragged about it online, and it was really weird. We have, like, all of the photos and everything that happened because she went online immediately after and started bragging about it because she thought it was so tough that she went to jail. So the only evidence that we have comes from her own posts and what other people have said, because since she was a minor at the time, all of the records were confidential, but we do know for sure that she went because literally everyone she knows, including her, said that she did, and there's also photos of it. But even after that, she kept posting. She wrote, "What's the point in getting a job, getting a husband, and doing school when you're going to live in federal prison for the rest of your life?" Her family history is a little bit blurry, but there are a few things we do know. We know her parents are both still together and that her father has a criminal record. I'm not going to disclose anything about her parents or the charges that her dad had because this is not about them, it's about her. And I would imagine they already have enough stress on their plate given what's going on now that I'm about to get into. But it is clear that both of her parents have been fully aware of her extremist behavior for a long time, and she even alleged that her parents were also in on it and that they were allegedly in agreement with her beliefs entirely until she got arrested, and then they all turned into Jews, which is crazy because Sally herself is Jewish, which we're gonna get into in a minute as well. If she is actually being truthful about this and not just trying to cover her ass by blaming her parents, it seems that the moment the consequences actually showed up at her parents' door, they completely distanced themselves from her ideology and completely wiped themselves from the internet. Her father owned a business which has been wiped from the face of the internet, as well as both of their social media accounts. Her family was doxxed by her ex-boyfriend's ex-partner, who I talked to, and she asked me to credit her, and I'm not going to credit her because she's a white supremacist, and fuck you guys. But yeah, both of her parents' digital footprints seem to have been completely wiped since her behavior went public, and they're kind of just in hiding right now. And I can only imagine how tense things must be in that household. Like, you've got a teenage daughter who's being investigated by the FBI because she's idolizing mass shooters and threatening to do it herself, and you find out that she's hanging out in these group chats with other alt-righters, neo-Nazis. And not only is she living under your roof while doing all of this, she's blaming you for turning Jewish the moment that you have a problem with it and ask her to stop. That's not a normal parent-teenager conflict. It's generational delusion compounded by public shame. She posted her manifesto on a Telegram group chat, which is still accessible because all of her devices are completely locked by her parents. So I got all of it, and I got the proof of what it was that she said. She writes, "I'm going to be explaining my ideology and why I think the way I do. I'm 18. I was raised in a Christian household with both parents. I went to Christian schools my whole life. I got taken out of school in the 2nd grade due to a teacher physically abusing me. She was Hispanic. I won't say that started my hatred, but I guess it would be a good excuse for me to do what I do. What I post online is mostly a troll. It's funny to get people mad, but I do believe in it. Before I start, I am 0.5 Ashkenazi Jew from my Polish cousin. I hope whoever is reading this knows how percentages work in ethnicities and genetics. 0.5% is literally nothing. Being such a low of a percentage, it doesn't even count as an ethnicity. You have to be 6% or more to actually be counted as the ethnicity. So you might say, well, you look like a Jew, so you are a Jew. I'm not a religious Jew. I'm not. I would like to say I'm not an ethnic Jew because I'm kind of not, but whatever. In the Second War, Hitler wanted to get rid of the Jews because they were trying to control everything and everyone. And then she just goes into graphic detail talking about how all Jews are predators and preying on children, and it's just a fucking bore, so I'm not even gonna get into it because it's predictable. And then she just randomly starts talking about trans people and says, "They silence far-right voices on social media because they do not want people to see it and get an idea of the truth and what actually happens. They say that the Nazis burnt a whole bunch of books about the Holocaust, but in reality, the Hitler Youth kids were burning books about transgenderism. Me personally, I do not like the idea of being transgender. I believe there are two genders, male and female. You either have a penis or a vagina. That's just common sense. You pushing that thought onto your kid that they might be a boy instead of a girl is cancer, and I think it is very wrong and child abuse." One thing you're going to learn about this girl as we continue on through the video is she thinks that anything she doesn't like deserves to immediately die. If she doesn't like any group of people, they immediately deserve to be fucking fed into a meat grinder and put on the shelves at Walmart. And then after she says all that, she starts talking about Jews again, and then she randomly starts talking about black people and says, I get it if you grew up in a bad area and you lived around blacks your whole life. You can always change your life around. I've lived around blacks my whole life. I still do, and I'm not like that, but I think blacks are very violent. They're very loud. They lack a lot of common sense. They're genetically different from other races. You can call me hateful all you want, but I'm going to stick with my views and I don't think it's ever going to change. I started to get deep into National Socialism and nationalism itself when I was 13. Mexicans, they're weird, they stink, they're rude, and they breed like rabbits. I also used to be a crazy bitch talking about how I wanted to kill black people and Jewish people, and Mexicans and gay people. Oh my god, I didn't even talk about gay people. Okay, quick drop on my thoughts about gay people. And then I'm not even going to get into the thoughts that she has about gay people because it's literally the most fucking bullshit Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, like, regurgitated, all queer people are predatory towards kids. Like, bitch, stop! Stop! And the way that she's casually talking about wanting to kill minorities. Ho! Okay, when I read this manifesto to my boyfriend, I actually crashed out because it was so fucking stupid. I'm trying so hard not to crash out right now. Like, I have to stay professional for the camera, but it's so hard! Okay. And then she continues on, and she finishes it off by saying, I've got things in real life that I cannot say on the internet because I am on a watch list for the next 6 years of my life due to me being arrested for hate speech and shooting threats. But not posting anything and just being quiet in my room about my ideology and my thoughts on stuff is doing nothing. Maybe if you've been arrested for hate speech and shooting threats, maybe if you were like a normal sane person, you would sit down and think, maybe I'm doing something wrong. But no, she doubles down on it. It's actually crazy. Like, I want to take this girl's brain out and study it. I want to take it into a lab. I want to understand. It's so difficult for me when I look at shit like this because I just want to understand so bad, but I cannot get it. It's like everything she says barely fits together and it's so difficult to read. Like, I had to do so many retakes when I was reading the manifesto because her grammar and her spelling and the way that she formatted it was just so unreadable and like broken English. I also think it's really funny how she tries to act like she's being personally victimized because she was rightfully taken to jail after she threatened to kill multiple people. Like, girl, you are the problem here. She also allegedly told a man she was interested in, who I interviewed, that she's not even supposed to be on the internet until she turns 21. Which suggests some, like, legal or parental limitations on her access to the internet for, you know, her own well-being and the safety of others. Whether it was a court-ordered limitation or just a suggestion from the police, she has not done it. But it does make one thing abundantly clear. People around her have been actively trying to contain what it is that she's been doing online for a long time, and it is not working. Despite her knowing that her presence on the internet can and will lead to very serious legal consequences, she continues to do it anyway, whether it's for trauma bonding with the other alt-righters, or her obsession with male validation, or just her, like, not being able to contain her baseless, ignorant, hateful rants. I don't know what it is, but she cannot stay away from the internet, no matter how hard she tries. It's painful to watch. And as if being a racist, gun-worshipping neo-Nazi was not enough, Sally has also been accused of allying herself with a group of literal teenage PDF files. One anonymous victim even alleged that Sally helped spread a video of them being assaulted at age 16, or at least sat by and watched it happen. And they also claimed that her Pinterest account once contained disturbing, suggestive images of Japanese children with adult men. So now we have left the realm of internet edgelord and firmly entered the territory of literal federal crimes. In spite of her obsession with hating predators, Sally has a documented history of catering to the exact same people she claims to despise. Among some more serious things that I won't go into detail about, as she was a minor at the time they occurred, she roleplayed as a little girl on Roblox for attention from teenage boys. As well as a video about how rape jokes are like the funniest thing in the world, and how people need to not take them so seriously, which is so ironic because a large portion of her other tweets are of pedophiles being caught and beaten, and talking about how much she hates pedophiles. But the thing is that you have to understand about Sally Saxon is that she only hates pedophiles if they are people of color. She loves to prop up pedophiles if they are attractive white guys. Even if they're not attractive. As long as they're white, she does not give a fuck. Now, at this point, we need to talk about grooming as a concern, because it is a very real possibility. Sally was a minor for most of this, and while she has engaged in extremely disgusting behavior, she is very young. And it is true that in these circles, young girls are regularly exploited by teenage boys and even older men. I know this because I've lived it. When I was 15, I was groomed by a guy who was in the alt-right, and he guised himself as being politically moderate, which I was at the time because I was really young. And then after several months of us being together, he slowly started to show his actual beliefs to me, and by that point I felt like I was too far in, and I didn't know how to get out. It took a year, the police, and CPS to separate us. He used misogynistic ideology and kink positivity as a cover for his abuse, and I was too young to understand any of it, and I ended up getting put in a lot of sexual situations that I was very uncomfortable with. So at first I really wanted to believe that Sally was just a victim like I had been, but there's a lot more nuance to it. Once you actually get into it, you see that she was not just victimized, she was victimizing other people and seemingly having a great time doing it. Obviously, she was introduced to these ideas by other people and by the internet, but she has fully embraced them, and she feels very passionately about them. She wasn't just a pawn, she's been a willing player in all of it, and she's not backing down. I've always believed in second chances, and I've always been a huge critic of cancel culture in general because I don't think that anyone as an adult should be held to the standard of what they were like as a teenager. Because obviously people change, they learn and they grow, and it's just a part of life. If every single person had their entire life laid out in front of everyone, everyone would be canceled. And obviously this isn't to excuse predators, because obviously anyone who's a predator should automatically be fucking wiped from the face of the earth, in my opinion. But when it comes to edgy things that people have said online when they were a teenager, I don't think that we should hold people to those standards. However, in this case, no. I do not think that this is something that you can come back from, if I'm being honest. This is someone who never stopped, who escalated, doubled down, glorified mass murder, actively tried to carry it out, and then laughed about it. She's also allegedly enabled predators and spread CSAM of another minor and laughed about it. She's tried to use her position as a cute blonde TikTok girl to normalize one of the most dangerous genocidal ideologies in the world, and she has no apologies for it. And if you think that this is just one isolated incident, it's not. Sally Saxon is just a symptom of a growing problem. One retweet she posted really stuck out to me in the most nauseatingly disgusting way. She posted a clip from a movie of a black man being beaten by a fascist. He calls him the N-word as well as another slur, and then he puts a gun to his head and says he's going to teach him a lesson. He puts the gun to his head and says, "Put your mouth on the curb." He puts the black man's mouth on the curb, and then you know what happens next. The text added to the video says, "Always on my mind," with SS bolts under the clip. Nazis aren't just the villains from history books. They're terminally online teenagers with ring lights, Discord servers, and access to firearms. Now, to really understand the full scope of this situation and who Sally Saxon is, you have to know about the group that she's most personally affiliated with, 2119, also known as the Blood and Soil Crew. And it's arguably one of the most dangerous examples of homegrown white nationalist extremism in the last 5 years. The name 2119 is a coded reference using alphanumeric substitution to the slogan "Blood and Soil" used in Germany in the 1940s. It was a central part of Hitler's racial ideology, the idea that only those of pure European descent have a right to occupy land, and that racial mixing is a contamination of the country. That's the foundation this group is built on. Not irony, not memes, not satire. It's literal fascist dogma. 2119 started forming in Florida in 2022 and quickly gained traction among teenagers and young adults through encrypted messaging apps like Telegram and Wire. These platforms gave them a perfect echo chamber, an anonymous, unmoderated space to share propaganda, weapon guides, manifestos, and mass shooter worship material. Some of the members were as young as 13 or 14. The structure was decentralized but ideologically unified. Think of it like a cult where every member is encouraged to become a lone wolf terrorist, but with just enough coordination to swap tactical manuals and boost each other's online content. Members created manuals on mass violence and how to effectively carry it out. It didn't take long for 2119 to move from talking about violence to actually doing it. By late 2023, law enforcement began connecting them to a string of hate-fueled crimes across the East Coast. In North Carolina and New Hampshire, members of the group were implicated in the vandalism of synagogues, mosques, and Black cultural landmarks. We're talking about hate symbols spray-painted on places of worship, property destruction, and threats designed to terrorize entire communities. In Florida, 4 members of the group were charged with felony hate crimes after targeting 2 synagogues, a mosque, and a Masonic lodge in a coordinated campaign of vandalism.
And basically, a lot of people don't like them because of how they do things. 2119 is very much boots on the ground, get active. We're a bunch of young guys. And yeah, you go up to fucking hooligan shit, but every young group does that shit. You think I wasn't up to hooligan shit when I was 15, 16, 17? Bet your ass I was. The biggest hate against them really just comes down to everyone's a insecure fat and they don't like people doing things like the way they want it. Like, yeah, they're gonna spray paint swastikas. Whoa, big big deal. And yeah, there was a situation in P-Cola, but that wasn't from the leadership that did that. That was a local crew of boys who did something objectively stupid and it shouldn't have happened. But that's not really something on the crew, that's something on the ringleader of that exact action.
And in January 2024, things escalated even further when 6 masked 2119 members appeared outside the home of journalist John Green, a reporter known for covering far-right extremism. They lit flares, they did their Sieg Heils, and they filmed the entire thing and posted it as a warning to anyone who dared expose them. Green's reporting later connected several of the perpetrators to Sally Saxon's inner circle, including her ex-boyfriend Noah Haran. Haran was investigated by the FBI for threats of violence and burning a pride flag at his high school, as well as posting photos of himself with weapons. The FBI pulled him out of class, and he got sent to a military camp by his father. As if that would somehow help, because I feel like military camp is a wet dream for any alt-right teen boy. And the funny thing is, in spite of Sally Saxon's strict rules about race mixing and racial purity, Noah Haran is actually Afghan. After they broke up, she posted a TikTok saying that his brown eyes and brown hair would have ruined her child's genetics, which is so funny to me because Sally Saxon's hair is naturally brown. She bleaches it blonde, and her parents made her dye her hair back to brown as a punishment for all the shit that she's been doing.
I'm grounded, and my parents put parent control on my phone, so I don't have any social media, and they made me dye my fucking hair brown.
But like I was saying, it's no exaggeration to say that 2119 is a domestic terror group. The only reason they haven't carried out any acts of mass violence yet is because they always get caught by their parents or by the FBI first. But the intent, the planning, the radicalization, it's all there. And the scariest part is that they're recruiting teenagers, kids who are isolated, angry, or just chronically online. They are the perfect targets to push down a rabbit hole and emerge out believing that genocide is justified and necessary. Sally Saxon's story is horrifying and deeply sad, not because I feel bad for her, but because it shows something so real and dangerous that is becoming so prevalent in young people online. I can laugh at how absurd all of this is, like, the body pillow, the military cosplay, the obsession with racial purity from someone who doesn't even follow her own rules and is mixed herself. But the consequences of these beliefs are serious and deadly when put into action, and that part is not funny at all. At some point in all of this, Sally's parents tried to intervene, as most parents probably would if their daughter was spiraling into fantasies of white nationalist terrorism. According to people who knew her at the time, Sally's parents eventually told her to chill the fuck out, to stop posting all the far-right propaganda, stop making threats, stop waving her guns around in front of flags that are soaked in genocide. Like basic parenting. And like I said before, her response was she called them Jews. Because in her twisted worldview, anyone who disagrees with her must be an enemy of the white race. They're not just wrong, they are racial enemies. Her own family becomes part of some grand conspiracy the moment that they don't agree with her and tell her to calm down. And the irony of all of this is that she herself is Jewish. And it's funny because she copes so hard about the fact that she's Jewish, like trying to explain it away and say, oh, I'm not really that Jewish. I'm not that Jewish, even though my grandfather's Jewish and my cousin is Jewish. I'm not though. Girl, it's on your ancestry DNA report. Like, just accept it and cope and understand that your fucking ethnicity does not dictate your morality as a person. She has no fucking morals. She is 1,000 times worse than anything she's ever posted on her Twitter about minorities engaging in violence, talking about how white people are more peaceful and not as violent, when she literally threatened to shoot up a school, I think? I don't know what it was she threatened to shoot up, but she threatened to commit some sort of mass shooting. And yet she posts videos on her Twitter of black babies pretending to point a gun. And then posts her with an actual gun, threatening to kill actual people. And what makes all of this more confusing and so much more disturbing, when you find out that most of her friends growing up were black, including her best friend. There are photos of her as a kid, where she's smiling ear to ear, hanging out at parties, having fun at sleepovers, and taking selfies with black girls that she seemed genuinely close to. These were the people she called her best friends. There's even a more recent video that was taken after her full-blown descent into white supremacy of her laying in bed with one of those same friends. She's using the N-word casually, saying that a N-word flirted with her in jail.
Your Honor, my client, she's just a girl. I've been thriving, period. And was flirting with me in jail though. He blew me a kissy face. I don't want those cuties. Take her for a trip, fly to New York, put her name on the tips. You want some dick? I could dick you down.
Not like him.
You don't know my game though.
I do.
I got mad dick game.
Do you?
Like my shit's curved and everything. Big, fat, and long.
Like it was just some sort of funny story and not something that should make her friends recoil in disgust. And then she's like sexually harassing them low-key for some reason. And that's what makes all of this so disgusting. All of this is coming from someone who slept next to people of color in her bed, called them her best friends, hugged them, went to parties with them, and then now publicly fantasizes about executing people who look like them. It's a cognitive dissonance that is absolutely sociopathic. How do you square having a black best friend with posting a video on Twitter of a black person being curb stomped, saying, "always on my mind"? How do you look a person in the face and then go home and then tweet about how their race is a threat to your gene pool? The only logical conclusion is she never saw them as people to begin with. Because to her, everyone is either a useful prop or a subhuman obstacle. And tragically, her own friends, the ones who loved her despite all the red flags, were just casualties of this ideology. I can't imagine what it must have felt like for them to realize that the person they trusted was broadcasting fantasies of racial violence against them. And then still hanging out with them like everything was normal and they didn't deserve to die for their genetic makeup. That kind of betrayal doesn't come with any kind of closure, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're deeply traumatized by that for the rest of their lives. I don't think calling for the mass extinction of any race is something that anyone can ever come back from. You can't threaten to commit acts of mass violence against innocent people without expecting your own life to be ruined. You can't spread CSAM and hang out with PDF files and then claim to hate predators. This is a pattern of pure evil. It's something that she's dead set in, and I honestly don't think she's even psychologically capable of coming out of it. She deserves every last setback she's going to have in her life because of it. She's never going to go to college, she's never going to have a real job unless it's given to her by her father. The only way that she could escape this would be to change her entire fucking identity and leave the country. Or like live in a far-right commune in buttfuck Germany. And all of these consequences are entirely deserved. At the end of the day, Sally Saxon isn't just some edgy teenager who said something racist on the internet and got cancelled. She's someone who has willingly and repeatedly aligned herself with violent ideologies, glorified mass murderers, and posted disturbing content for attention. She built an entire persona around being unapologetically hateful. And while some people might look at her and want to write off her age as an excuse for all of it, I just don't think that that's something that you can do. Being the same age as her, I cannot imagine doing any of the things that she's doing for any fucking reason. She's too old to be doing this. This isn't just a teenage phase, it's a pattern of sociopathy. One that has grown in the darkest corners of the internet, fueled by large communities that don't just tolerate this behavior, they celebrate it. It was never just about clout. It was never shock value or rage bait. She admitted herself that she truly does believe everything that she posts. It's about control, dominance, and power at its core. And the fact that she's been able to fly under the radar for as long as she has says a lot more about the platforms enabling this behavior than it does about her. There will most likely be no redemption arc. This is the logical endpoint of what happens when you give a deeply disturbed person with no moral compass a platform. And she uses it to make the world a much more hateful, dangerous place for anyone who is not like her. What she needs more than anything is residential inpatient therapy and a fucking reality check. We can only hope and pray that in the future she doesn't perpetrate the same fantasies of mass violence that she has been talking about for all this time, and that when she's older and she doesn't have as much supervision, she'll hopefully grow up and stop doing this. But honestly, I would not be surprised if we see her on the news someday. I really wouldn't. And if there's any justice, this will be the last time we have to talk about her.